Is the obfuscation of information becoming the norm in gaming? I'm not talking about the trendy Soulsian approach to storytelling. I'm talking about simply making something like navigating menus intentionally vague. You know how supermarkets always put the most commonly purchased items at opposite ends of the store. You go in to buy eggs and end up leaving with a basket full of food and a child. It's a long-standing approach to drawing as much money from the consumer as imaginable. I guess I've become used to it, but recently I've been playing more free-to-play games, and it has just startled me how dedicated to hiding information from you they are. Dirty Bomb, Heroes of the Storm, and so on all seem to actively work against easy navigation, forcing you to saunter by as many purchase opportunities and bloated menus as possible before arriving at some simple destination. I understand, and I could argue that this is acceptable. I mean, you didn't pay anything to access some of these games, so they should be allowed to practice some relatively harmless things to squeeze a bit more money out of people. I guess so. But that's the world we live in, and in gaming we are seeing the quick death of utilitarian design, because in this market there isn't much money in making things easy for people. And I hadn't really thought about it much until I had the jarring experience of leaving Dirty Bomb, a new free-to-play first-person shooter, and opening up Big Pharma, a new game from the one-man team of Twice Circled. It was stunning, just an absolute feast of information. The UI is very clean and almost overwhelming at first in how forthcoming with information it is. Everything you need to know is just spat in your face with every bit of superfluous fluff trimmed away. And for the first time in a while, I was feeling like I didn't have to pay the troll's toll at every water crossing. And it's terrible for that to be the most notable thing from my first few hours with the game, because it's a wonderful product and more full-featured, creative, and rewarding than 90% of its peers. Big Pharma is all around just stunningly designed. For the viewer's sake, I can summarize it as something like Factorio meets Space Chem, a deadly mixture of tycoon, puzzle, and Tetris-like space management, even if there are major differences between all three, and it doesn't really give credit to any of these games to be included in some offhanded comparison, but it is certainly a good way to get across the flow of the game. The game's menu design melds well with its overall look, sparkling clean and appropriately sterile for a game about the creation of pharmaceuticals. The machines are all exaggeratedly sci-fi, but impressively lively and thankfully free of any pixel art. Their animations all work in short, synchronized bursts, which makes zooming out and observing a massive factory you've constructed from the ground up look like gorgeous clockwork. And clockwork is probably the best way to describe the gameplay and how the game sinks its hooks into you. It's the same sort of efficiency porn that games like Factorio thrive on, trimming the fat and making money through the building of neatly woven production lines. At the start of each game, you were only given a few pieces of equipment, and making high-level drug mixtures either requires a fruitlessly long string of machines, or it's just impossible till you discover new medicines or medicine-making machines. This is done through hiring researchers or explorers, the former of which slowly discover new machines, and the latter of which go out into the wilderness to hunt for ingredients. Both cost money to maintain and are completely automated once hired. An awesome design decision here is the fact that even when the two aren't on the job, they accrue points, which can be used to upgrade your machines, or make the various drug ingredients cheaper to bring into your factory. It keeps them useful while you are waiting for more money to come around. Waiting is definitely a problem right now with the game. Even though you can fast forward, the early game of pretty much every round you play is a very slow and generally repetitive process. The game offers a number of different stages. From the get-go, you can choose any of them. The beginning stages of the game, which, as I said, are totally optional, are a great way to acclimate to the game, and it's pretty unique in how it functions, but they do set a terrible precedent for how the game will flow in its more advanced stages. Gameplay initially allows for far too much passivity. You can just turtle back and beat the challenges through sheer force and patience. It's definitely a problem on the easier levels. It's completely unavoidable though in games like this, but you will have to deliberately avoid dominant strategy at first. So while you're learning the game, I recommend patience, because the game doesn't really gain its footing until the advanced stages. Thankfully, the game offers a quick start option for those who aren't interested in repeatedly going through the same early game routine. The advanced stages though are, as the developer says, the way the the game is intended to be played. These stages are also where everything is unlocked and available to be researched and brought into the game. There are a ton of machines, all having specific and clearly described uses, but there aren't so many that the game alienates you from its systems. They also all work together beautifully and make problem solving and organization a fun experience instead of a frustrating one. In the latter parts of the advanced stages, you will be struggling for space as you attempt to mix and deliver drugs while still keeping an eye on the competition and market fluctuations. At the same time, while doing all of this, you will be conducting new research and exploration projects. It sounds overwhelming, but as I was talking about earlier, the game just dumps information onto you, which takes a little while to get used to. But once you do, the game works hard to keep you in the know with things like nice notifications that appear in the top left corner of the screen when certain things are completed. It's a wonderful addition and keeps the player from giving up after being engulfed by so many different tasks. The tasks the game gives you are simple but hard to achieve, which perfectly suits the game's open-ended tycoon aspects. Most of the objectives are things like get this amount of money in this amount of time, or distribute a certain amount of a certain drug within a decade. Each challenge takes quite a long time to beat, and of course you can go back and play them again to attempt to complete the task in a better time. There isn't a traditional sandbox mode at this point, but I really don't think the game would function very well without a defined end goal. I could definitely see the game being helped by the addition of some secondary objectives, or just optional objectives during each stage. Though I can sing the praises of the current choices regarding the endgame, I just wish there was more progress outside of the little challenges that you are given. It all feels very flippant and inconsequential when you spend more than 2.5 hours building a huge, gorgeous factory with amazing profit margins, only to completely eliminate all your work and start again. I would love for all your little factories to be working towards some huge final endgame goal, just to add a bit more heft to your decisions. Right now though, Big Pharma's choice to have the game fractured into a series of mini stages works well, and will still deliver dozens of hours of entertainment. But it's hard to build a connection with what you're making with the knowledge that it will eventually be thrown away once the objectives are met. It's like getting a pet pig only for the bacon. Ultimately, the game is another great entry into my sadly small library of early access successes, and it stands tall against Factorio, which is quite possibly my favorite game in early access right now. It's a rare sight, but the game feels like a complete package already, and I'm excited to see it only get better. I'm planning on actually making another video on this game at a later date as well. Once it's released in full, I will just write an actual review, but right now it has a very high recommendation from me. I really hope this game sells well. I don't think I can stand many more survival games. Thank you so much for watching.